Hello and welcome to this lesson from Simple-ESL, and today we are looking at a C1 lesson around writing. And what are we trying to write? We're writing a how-to guide or article in English. We'll focus on linking phrases to guide the reader step by step through processes. We're going to write an article that gives advice and instructions, and by the end of the lesson you'll be able to use appropriate sequence linkers. Now, why can this be useful? Well, how-to articles are common in blogs, job instructions, writing tasks, exam tasks, everyday communication. Using these linking words will help you feel that your writing is logical, professional, and easy to follow. So have you ever looked up a how-to guide online? Maybe you needed advice on how to fix something. This is where this lesson will be very useful for writing these guides. And once again, it's aimed at a C1 level, so a high level of English is required here. Now, we're going to look at the structure. I'd like you to name things that you could teach others how to do. So have a little think about the sort of things you can teach people to do. For example, I'm teaching you English. Could I do a how-to guide on teaching English? A how-to article teaches the reader how to do something step by step. It must be clear and easy to follow. Should have a sequence of phrases in a good order, so ordered with sequence of phrases, and should be practical and realistic to achieve these goals. The introduction, we are looking to state what the article is about. So in our structure, we'll start with the introduction. We will then have the steps in order. This is often using linking words. Then the conclusion, our final thoughts and advice on the topic. Here is an example with the linking phrases and ordering of the words. So some of the words we can use linking phrases to start with. Secondly, the next step is. My final piece of advice is. To conclude. These are the phrases we'll use in today's lesson. And we can see here in my example, to start with, terrible drawing. Let's try the highlighter. To start with, gather all of your ingredients. Secondly, preheat the oven to 180 degrees. The next step is to mix the flour and eggs. My final piece of advice is to let the cake cool before serving. To conclude, baking a sponge cake is easier than it seems. So we have our introduction to start with, steps, secondly, the next step, my final piece of advice, then our conclusion, our final thoughts and advice on the topic. So with this in mind, let's remember this and try this gap fill exercise. I would like you to complete the article using the correct links, phrases, and we have to conclude, to start with, my final piece of advice is, secondly, and the next step is. How to prepare for a job interview. To start with, research the company online. What would we use next? We want something a second. Secondly, review common interview questions. What are we doing next? The next step is practice answering aloud. We're going into our last piece of advice. My final piece of advice is dress professionally, arrive early. And then our final thoughts to conclude, stay calm, confident, and throughout the process. We have a sentence scramble now. I'd like you to unscramble the steps and put them in the correct order. So take a moment to read the paragraph, the passage, the article on how to make a cup of tea. You can pause it if you need time, but put them into the correct order. For those who haven't paused, I'm going to give you 3, 2, 1. And now we have the correct order. To start with, fill your kettle with water. Secondly, boil the water. The next step is to add the tea bag to your cup. My final piece of advice is to let the tea steep for a few minutes. To conclude, enjoy your tea with a biscuit. Very important, do not forget the biscuit. One more exercise here for you, a dialogue completion. I'd like you to complete the conversation using the linking words again. Take a moment to read, and we're going to try to give instructions on how to prepare a presentation. So, I'm going to ask you, can you help me prepare a presentation? You would say, sure. To start with, choose your topic. Okay. Then you would say, secondly, write a simple outline. Got it. You would then say, the next step is to create your slides using short bullet points. That makes sense. Your final piece of advice, my final piece of advice is rehearse it out loud at least twice. And then, to conclude, just stay calm and speak clearly. Now, we have gone through that structure and it's very clear how the format works. We have our introduction, we give the steps, then we give a conclusion. This is the task I'm setting you. I want you to write a short how-to article, about 100 to 120 words on one of these topics. How to stay focused when you study, how to cook your favorite meal, or how you organize your day. You must use all 5 linking phrases or linking words. To start with, secondly, the next step is, my final piece of advice is, and to conclude. It should take you about 10 to 15 minutes to do this. Read it out loud. Here is my example on how to organize your day. To start with, write a list of tasks you need to complete. Secondly, decide which tasks are most important. The next step is to set limits for each task. The final piece of advice is to take breaks and avoid distractions. To conclude, a clear plan makes your day more productive. And we can see I have used all of the phrases to start with. Secondly, the next step is, my final piece of advice is, and my conclusion. And this is how we can write very clear articles and instructions and how-to guides. And if you have someone to discuss with, or you'd like a little bit more practice, in small groups you can try giving advice on daily things, or maybe moving to a new city. Use linking words to explain the steps clearly. So for the example of moving to a new city, to start with, find a new place to live. Secondly, learn how public transport works. The next step is to visit important places. The final piece of advice is to join a club. And to conclude, be open and patient. It takes time to feel at home. So if you have someone that you can speak with or practice your English, this could be a really useful task. And what are our key takeaways from today's lesson? Today we have learnt the structure of how-to articles. We use 5 key linking phrases that will make this structured, clear, and it's a great way to build up your articles. We've used how to organize ideas into logical steps, making sure they're in the correct order. We don't want the conclusion at the beginning. We don't want the introduction at the end. We've also learned how to write and speak using these clear steps. If you would like more practice with this, we do have a worksheet using the QR code on our Patreon page where you can access this. The next steps would be to write and have a how-to article as homework on a new topic and using all the phrases to guide your reader clearly. This is a written task. You can also do it as a spoken task, but very useful if you're in the workplace and need to write a how-to guide. Once again, that structure and practice is available on our worksheet, and I will see you in our next lesson. Have a wonderful day.